Hi, everyone. We have a Summit project presentation called Decision to Incision. Presenting for you today is Megan Gay. Megan, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. So the storyboard decision to incision essentially came about due to an RA that occurred. We had a stat C-section that was determined to have a slower response time than what was determined to be necessary for the hospital, for the patient, and also for New York State. So we did a little bit of digging per the OBGYN requests and found that the New York State Code Rules and Regulations Section 10 states that the perinatal services shall have available services for the identification of high-risk mothers and fetuses, continuous electronic fetal monitoring, cesarean delivery capabilities within 30 minutes of determination of need. So we recognize that we needed to meet this goal for our patients and obviously for New York State rules and regulations. And so the operating room and OB decided to collaborate together to create an algorithm and to improve communication among the units and among the key players to improve our decision to incision times. So a couple of obstacles were identified in creating this new process. Limitation of resources were identified. Staff not being currently available in-house 24 hours a day. So what that means is that the operating room does not run 24/7. There's a call team that is available with a 30-minute response time, but they are not present, so that could potentially be a delay in care. And a big barrier that was identified was communication between all of the key players and team member role clarification in the patient that needed to go to the operating room. The objectives of the storyboard were to classify cesarean sections based on the degree of urgency. So that means if the cesarean section is an ad urgent, it needs to be completed within 24 hours. If it's an urgent, it needs to be completed within 12 hours. If it's an emergency, it needs to be completed within 1 to 2 hours. And new to this identification system is a STAT cesarean section, and that means it needs to be completed within 30 minutes of decision to incision. Objective 2 is to communicate between obstetrics and perioperative services. So we recognized immediately that there was a lack of communication regarding the classification for the C-section and also the needs of the unit, the needs of the physician, the needs of the patient. So that was also identified as an objective. And objective 3 is identifying roles and responsibilities and teamwork. Again, not only identified as a very big barrier, but became one of our main objectives was to make sure that the roles of the providers and of the RNs were clear, so that way there was no overlap and also no delay in the care that's being received. The results of our look back on the C-sections that happened during 2019 were pretty telling. So what we looked at was the number of C-sections that happened, as well as the communication tool that existed that we were looking to change, and also response times. Was identified was that in 2019, 2 of the C-sections that were called were actually stat C-sections versus emergency or urgent. And also we looked at response times for C-section responses from operating room staff and providers. And as you can see on the Adirondack Health response time emergency C-section graph, the third graph, our response time actually decreased as we started to implement changes reflected on this decision to incision storyboard. So the outcomes that were achieved were what we actually reflected our objectives. So we were able to change the classifications on the surgical booking sheet, which is the sheet that the surgeon fills out when booking a case. We added the additional option of a stat C-section. There was education that was rolled out among all OB and OR and PCC staff, as well as to the surgeons, the differentiation between the classifications and the importance of understanding when a stat C-section should be called and what needs to happen as soon as that is determined. In addition to that, we created a C-section, cesarean section process map that identified team roles and responsibilities. This helped, basically helped nursing staff identify what their role would be in a stat C-section, so that way care for the patient could start happening immediately and there would be no double doing of care. And this helped streamline the process as well. So the next steps for this initiative is to obtain approval for the stat C-section protocol. We are looking for reinforcement through drills and education of the stat C-section process map and continued data collection to monitor the progress and make sure that we are maintaining our call-in, our decision to incision time less than 30 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Megan. It's a great collaborative effort between the different departments. And now, if anyone wants to get a hold of you, if they have questions about this project, how can they contact you?
They can reach me at 897-2495, which is my office phone, or via email at mguay@adirondackhealth.org.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.